The movie begins with Yelena, now working as a cleanup agent standing on a rooftop, quietly reflecting on the darkness inside her. She jumps down onto the roof of the Ox laboratory and quickly begins her mission, silently taking out the guards inside. Inside the lab, two scientists have already been turned into shadow-like figures, but Yelena doesn't notice. Another scientist approaches and tries to explain what happened, but she dismisses him and destroys the lab, wiping out all the evidence. Afterward, she reports back to Valentina. Meanwhile, Bucky is now a congressman and is involved in efforts to remove Valentina from her position as CIA director and head of the Ox Group. During a congressional hearing, Valentina is accused of abusing her power by using the super soldier serum to create enhanced individuals through a program called the Sentry Project. Congressman Gary questions her, but Valentina shifts the focus by bringing up the past president, who turned into the Red Hulk and nearly caused a disaster. She argues that the Avengers are no longer around and that the Ox Group is necessary to deal with new threats. Later, realizing the situation is getting worse, Valentina tells her assistant Mel to get rid of all the evidence. She also asks if the cleanup agents have been assigned new tasks. Mel tells her they have, except for Yelena, who refused. Meanwhile, Alexei, Yelena's father, is now living in the United States. He spends his time watching old footage of his days as a Soviet super soldier, reliving his past glory. Yelena visits him and asks what he's been doing since they last met, but it's clear he hasn't been doing much. She then asks what it meant to be a super soldier and why any of their missions mattered. Alexei tells her that nothing compares to saving lives. He says her sister, Natasha, understood that and chose to make a difference. As she leaves, Yelena calls Valentina and asks for an assignment that would capture public attention. Valentina agrees on one condition: Yelena must complete one final cleanup job. The next day, Yelena is sent to eliminate someone planning to steal classified data from Ox Labs. She tracks the target to a secret warehouse. Once inside, she discovers files about the Sentry Project. As she scans through the documents, she hears footsteps. John Walker appears and, without hesitation, opens fire. It turns out John's assignment is to kill Yelena. They engage in a brutal fight, but before either can gain the upper hand, Antonia arrives and attacks John. Her mission is to eliminate him. Moments later, Ava shows up. When Yelena sees her, she steps in to fight. Yelena's target is Ava, and Ava's assignment is to kill Antonia. For a while, the four of them are locked in a chaotic free-for-all, each trying to complete their mission. But in the end, when Antonia is about to kill John, Ava intercepts and kills Antonia, completing her task. Suddenly, a man named Bob appears out of nowhere, trying to flee. But before he can escape, all the exits seal shut, trapping everyone inside. Bob introduces himself to the group. That night, Valentina hosts an upscale party, keeping up appearances despite growing pressure. Congressman Gary attends and quietly confronts her, warning that she won't be able to hide forever, that the truth will come out. Val brushes him off, keeping her composure. A short while later, Bucky arrives at the party and pulls Valentina's assistant, Mel, aside. He tries to persuade her to speak out against Valentina, arguing that she still has a chance to do the right thing. Mel, clearly uneasy, refuses and tries to walk away. Before she leaves, Bucky hands her a card and tells her to call him if she ever changes her mind. Back at the warehouse, Yelena and Ava start piecing things together. They realize they've been set up and are now considered loose ends, evidence of Valentina's wrongdoing. It becomes clear that Valentina is trying to eliminate everyone involved by trapping them inside. John, still skeptical, doesn't believe their theory. He questions Bob about how he even got into the warehouse. But Bob can't recall anything. His memory is a blank. Suddenly, Ava tries to escape using her phasing powers, but a high-pitched ultrasonic signal stops her, forcing her back. The warehouse is sealed tighter than they expected. Meanwhile, back at the party, Bucky pulls Gary aside again and suggests that they work together to get Mel to talk, but Gary shakes his head and says a separate plan is already in motion, and they need to wait. Back in the control room, Valentina, aware of the growing threat inside the warehouse, makes her decision. She authorizes the kill sequence, initiating a lockdown with lethal intent. Back at the warehouse, the group realizes they have less than 2 minutes before the kill sequence triggers and the entire place goes up in flames. They quickly come up with a plan: destroy the power source that's blocking Ava from using her abilities to phase through the door. Everyone begins searching. Yelena locates the power source, and John rushes over to help, smashing it with brute force. With the signal down, Ava phases through the wall and manages to unlock the door from the outside just in time. The others dash out, narrowly escaping the explosion. Outside, as they catch their breath, Yelena briefly touches Bob's hand. Instantly, she's hit with a dark vision. Memories from her past come rushing back. Somehow, contact with Bob triggers these buried memories. It's clear that there's more to him than they know. Meanwhile, Mel reports to Valentina that the group escaped. She also shows footage of them now working together. Valentina spots Bob in the video and immediately grows concerned. She asks Mel who he is. Mel says she doesn't know, but promises to find out. She contacts General Holt to try and intercept the group before they can disappear. Unbeknownst to them, Alexei, disguised as a driver, is nearby, listening in on the entire conversation. Back at the destroyed warehouse, the group regroups. John confronts Bob again, asking how he ended up there. Bob explains that he was at a medical center and suddenly woke up inside the warehouse. Later, Yelena and Bob talk one-on-one. Through their conversation, Yelena discovers that Bob also carries a dark past, not unlike her own. They begin to understand each other. As they explore further, John breaks through a wall, revealing a hidden area. What they find is shocking. They're deep underground, in a giant shaft. The only way out is up. John tries to jump and climb, but can't reach the top. Bob suggests they work together. One by one, they begin climbing, tired, bruised, but determined to escape. Meanwhile, Mel uncovers Bob's true identity, Robert Reynolds, one of the original test subjects in the Sentry project. She informs Valentina, who realizes with shock that Bob is the only known survivor of the program. Back at the warehouse, the group finally reaches the top of the underground shaft. As they climb out, John grabs one of Yelena's weapons and helps pull everyone up. When he grabs Bob's hand, however, he's hit by a sudden, vivid wave of disturbing memories. Bob's darkest moments, transferred through touch. Once outside, they find themselves surrounded by military forces. With no time to waste, they come up with a quick plan. Ava will use her phasing ability to retrieve a nearby vehicle. Meanwhile, the others rig an explosion in the room to create a diversion and split the soldiers' attention. Outside the facility, Valentina speaks with General Holt. She instructs him that the protocol is non-lethal. She needs at least one of them captured alive. But before they can act, an explosion goes off inside the base, drawing a squad of soldiers toward it. Inside, John and Yelena ambush the soldiers during the confusion, knocking them out and disguising themselves in their uniforms. They make their way to the exit just as Ava returns with the car. The group piles in, ready to escape. But at the gate, they're stopped by another checkpoint. To buy them time, Bob grabs a weapon and draws attention to himself, stepping out into the open. Holt, unaware of Valentina's change in orders, gives the command to fire. The soldiers open fire on Bob. Valentina shouts for them to stop, but it's too late. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. Bob awakens a hidden ability. He lifts off the ground, flying unintentionally. Moments later, he loses control, blacking out midair and crashing to the ground with immense force. The impact sends a shockwave across the area, knocking down soldiers and even flipping the car where Yelena, John, and Ava are trying to escape. A few moments after the crash, Yelena, John, Ava, and Bob slowly get back on their feet and begin walking. As they move, Yelena shares what she learned about the Sentry project, how test subjects were used and manipulated. John explains that this is the reason Valentina is being investigated. The project was never authorized, and people were hurt because of it. Meanwhile, Valentina and her team recover the unconscious Bob and transport him to an old, abandoned Avengers facility. She believes it's secure and off the radar. As morning breaks, Yelena and the others continue walking until Alexei pulls up in his car. He tells them he came as soon as he heard the coordinates and offers them a ride. During the drive, Alexei starts joking and making grand suggestions, saying they should become a team like the Thunderbolts. Everyone rolls their eyes, but the mood lightens slightly. Suddenly, a convoy appears behind them and begins to close in. John warns they should speed up, but the car is already at its limit. Without warning, the convoy opens fire. John leans out with his shield to protect the car. Ava tries to use her powers, but an ultrasonic weapon from the convoy stops her mid-action. Yelena returns fire, doing her best to keep them at bay. Just when things seem to be going south, Bucky arrives, ambushing the convoy. He takes out several vehicles and forces the remaining attackers off the road. The threat is neutralized, but their car is also knocked off the road in the process. Meanwhile, back at the old Avengers facility, Valentina and Mel arrive. Mel expresses concern about keeping someone as unstable as Bob in such a powerful state. Val brushes it off, unwilling to listen. Inside, Val enters Bob's room and tries to talk to him. Bob calmly asks about Yelena and the others. Val lies, saying they're in good hands. But when she mentions Bob's father, something inside him snaps. The building shakes as Bob's anger surfaces. Trying to calm him, Val reaches out and touches his hand, only to be pulled into a vision of her own dark memories. The images overwhelm her. She staggers back, shaken and unnerved. Bob stops her from leaving and insists he can control his powers. Rattled but composed, Val exits the room and tells Mel to schedule a press conference in the morning. Meanwhile, Bucky gathers the group and explains that they are now key witnesses in the case against Valentina. But Yelena and the others push back. They say Val didn't just manipulate them, she tried to kill them. They also reveal what they've learned about Bob and the truth behind Project Sentry. At first, Bucky is skeptical. The story sounds too extreme. But then he receives a call from Mel. She quietly confirms everything. Project Sentry was real, Bob was a part of it, and he's dangerously unstable. She urges Bucky to bring backup before things spiral further out of control. Realizing the threat is real, Bucky agrees to help. He tells the group to come with him. Yelena hesitates at first, but ultimately decides she needs to stop Val and free Bob from her influence. Meanwhile, back at the abandoned Avengers facility, Mel tries to reason with Val. She warns her that Bob is too unstable to be used as a weapon. While speaking, Mel notices a device nearby, Bob's kill switch. Val ignores Mel's concerns and enters Bob's room. Bob, now conscious, is slowly gaining control over his powers. Outside, Bucky and the others arrive. They ram into the facility and take down Val's guards in a fast-paced battle. Val interrupts the fight, calling them upstairs. When they arrive, she confronts them, mocking each of their pasts. She ridicules Alexei, claiming no one remembers the Red Guardian. When Bucky attempts to strike her, Bob steps in and stops him with telekinetic force. Val proudly introduces Bob as the Sentry, her ultimate weapon. She begins to boast about how she'll use him to reshape the world. Red Guardian lunges forward in anger, but Bob punches him back with overwhelming power. The others attack, but Bob proves nearly invincible. Super strength, telekinesis, an invisible energy shield, and resistance to all forms of attack, including electricity. When Bucky tries to land a blow with his vibranium arm, Bob tears it off effortlessly. The team is forced to retreat. Val orders him to finish them off, but Bob hesitates. He doesn't want to hurt them. Val, frustrated, reaches for the kill switch, but in the struggle, it slips from her hand. As Bob lashes out at her in anger, Mel grabs the kill switch and activates it. Bob collapses. Assuming he's dead, Val and Mel leave. But inside the facility, Bob awakens, now consumed by the darker force within him. Outside, Yelena breaks down. She tells Alexei about her sister, everything she's lost, and the guilt she carries. As she cries, something inside her shifts, healing a part of her. Recentered, she and Alexei prepare to fight back. Meanwhile, Bob, now the Dark Sentry, begins turning people into shadowy versions of themselves. He destroys a helicopter and nearby buildings. The team rushes in to save civilians from falling debris, but the darkness keeps spreading. Yelena heads straight into the shadow zone and is pulled into it. Inside, she's assaulted by visions of her past, trauma, guilt, and pain. She pushes through it all and finds Bob, lost in the void. They talk. Bob reveals that it's not truly him, it's the darkness using his body. Yelena convinces him to fight back, but they're attacked by dark entities. Just then, Bucky and the others arrive and fight back to give them a chance. Yelena suggests they go to the source, to the lab where Bob was created. They arrive, and the darkness attacks the others, but not Bob. He confronts the shadow form, trying to destroy it, but he can't bring himself to do it. Seeing his friends captured and in pain, Bob finally fights back with everything he has. As he punches the darkness, it begins to consume him, but he pushes on. Yelena and the others jump in, pull him back, and together they stop the corruption. The city returns to normal. The shadows vanish. New York is safe again. Later, as they regroup, John praises Bob's bravery. but Bob has no memory of what happened. They see Val and walk toward her, not noticing the press waiting nearby. On the other side, Val quickly introduces them as the new Avengers.